Welcome back to Merriam Pianos. My name is Stu Harrison and we're here with another piano review. Today we are looking at Kawai's CA78, a relatively new entrant to the home digital market, definitely coming in at the high end, the professional range of this instrument, and what an exquisite piano to just sit and enjoy. Today we're looking at the version that they come out with in ebony polish. That's very new for Kawai. It used to just come in the matte finishes. And today we're going to be listening to the instrument. We're going to be talking about the action, something they've been working on for almost 20 years at this point. We're talking about the sound, we're talking about the features, and hopefully at the end of it you'll have some information that's helped your research and helped your shopping process along the way. So sit back, enjoy. We're going to get started right away. About the action on the CA78. Now this is the same action that you're going to find on the CA98. Kawai's been working on this type of action for coming on 20 years. I remember starting in the piano business back in about 2005 and going down to Kawai's headquarters, North American headquarters in Los Angeles, and getting a whole run through on what they were doing with their all-wood action at that point. And it was absolutely state-of-the-art, leading the industry at this point. We're almost 15 years later, and they continue to improve on this action. What's even more interesting is, as time has gone by, several other companies are now using this action as the absolute foundation for their product. And so you can now find this in Nord's brand new Grand product that literally just hit the market a couple of months ago, as well as Ravenscroft, which is arguably one of the top boutique piano makers in the world, came out with a digital product called Raven Works, and they're using Kawai's wood-based action in there. So it's showing up everywhere. It really has, as I said, been leading the pack almost for 2 decades now. And what's in the CA78 is the very best of what Kawai is now producing in 2019. And so I'm just going to pull a little model in right here so we can have a look at exactly what this is all about. One of the things that you notice fairly immediately is just the sheer length of the key. And actually, if you hold this up to an acoustic piano key, what you realize is the distance between the front pin and what they would call the capstand, which is actually what moves the hammer, is exactly the same geometry and dimensions as what you find in an acoustic key. So anybody sitting there going, wow, you know, what has Kawai done that's so earth-shattering to get this level of authenticity? Well, it actually wasn't that difficult. It simply took the vision to put that into an instrument, which is, well, let's just put an acoustic key in. It has the same geometry. We don't have to simulate it with any springs or any additional counter levers, and maybe that'll get us a little closer to the bar. Well, it definitely did. The second thing that I certainly noticed, because I'm obviously an acoustic piano player as well as a salesperson and trainer, is you notice that a lot of the components in there are actually brass, chrome, hard metals that you also find in the action of acoustic pianos. So you're talking about an action that's built incredibly durably. The way in this works is, rather than having all of the parts that normally go in a whippen, it's really got one hammer component with weighting on the end. Now that weighting is graded, so as you get closer to the top of the keyboard, those weights get smaller. As it gets closer to the bottom of the keyboard, those weights get heavier to simulate the smaller and the larger keys. And then of course you've got this little rubber nubbin there. I'm sure there's a more technical term for that, but that essentially simulates that little escapement or that let-off, where on a real piano the jack would have been just slipping off the knuckle on the shank of the hammer. So this is what it's all about. This is what drives these CA78 and CA98, and of course again we're talking about the Grandfield 2 with let-off. Now as you start to play this instrument, you get lost pretty quickly. I mean, the level of expression and the depth of the range that you have, that the action gives you, is pretty extraordinary. If you haven't had a chance to try one of these, if you're in the market, you know, whether or not Kawai's on your list or not, if you have a chance to sit down and play one, I really think that it's an opportunity that you should take. It's pretty remarkable how far they've come from the time where people used to sneer at the thought of a digital piano being a real instrument, to the point now where we have really good players coming in the showroom, good teachers coming in the showroom, talking about instruments like this as their primary teaching instrument, or at the very least a really good secondary instrument to have in the studio or at home as a practice piano. Now, on top of the fact that it's feeling a lot better, and I made mention of the durability that you get over top of, say, a standard plastic action that has a few more moving parts, it's also using a triple sensor. And that triple sensor, again, is industry leading. That's one of the primary reasons why Ravenscroft and Nord selected this, was just the accuracy of the MIDI information that this instrument outputs to the tone generator. It's spot on, and we see this time and time again. I remember going down to NAMM a couple of years ago and walking around some of the software displays, and most of them were using the Kawai VPC-1 as the main controller to actually demonstrate the software, because the MIDI output was just so accurate and the feel was so good. So CA78, again, same as CA98, you're getting fantastically accurate, durable, and very satisfying action on which to play. Let's move on to the sound. So the newest CA series, including the CA78 and the 98, and of course the Novus 10, are all building upon Kawai's Harmonic Imaging technology, which is another thing that they've been working on for many, many years. Now, in simple terms, Harmonic Imaging is their trade name for essentially the algorithm that they use to create the piano sound. And in even more kind of you know, simplified terms, essentially what it is a recording of a real piano, and then they are using what's called modeling to affect those samples. So it's kind of like taking a snapshot of a real photo and then applying computer graphics over it to make any changes that you want. So you start with something real, and then you're applying programming and essentially computer code to modify it and customize it to what you happen to be doing on the keys. And that's where you get into their virtual technician technology. And even if you're just using it straight out of the box as it was programmed at the factory, you're hearing tons of detail that you don't hear in too many other places in the digital world. The bass sound for their piano sample in the 78 and the 98 is their 9-foot Shigeru EX Concert Grand. Now that on its own is an exquisite instrument to start with. I think arguably certainly one of the top 5 concert grands in the world, right up there in tonal complexity with a Hamburg Steinway or the Fazioli 278 or the Bechstein, the Bechstein 9-foot as well. And so you're starting with a great bass, and you've got, I think it's the 5th or 6th generation of Harmonic Imaging now that they're applying to that sample. And so you get this fantastically colorful, responsive, dynamic tone out of this instrument. So all of that great technology is sending sound to our ears through 4 super high-end speakers. And the 4 speakers on its own is kind of a nice treat, because most digital pianos, particularly if you're down in the $2,000 range or below, you're just getting 2 basic stereo speakers. On the CA78, this is loaded up with 4 speakers. You've got 2 on the top, which really are functioning as tweeters. So a lot of the higher frequencies and a lot of that upper end clarity that we really like to hear is sort of coming out where if you were sitting on a grand piano, it would be starting to come out of the strings, or where the strings are being struck by the hammers. That's kind of a nice placement. Plus, visually, it's out of the way. You hardly even notice that they're there. The main volume of this, the instrument is coming out the bottom. We've got two two-way speakers on the bottom. So that's a speaker where you have like two cones within one. You've got something for your low frequencies, and you've got a slightly smaller cone for your mid frequencies, all built into a single speaker. So we've got two of those on the bottom, and then we've got two discrete amplifiers in there. So we've got nice clean signal out of the left and out of the right. What this means is that for somebody who's a bit of an audiophile, or somebody who really wants great sound production, you're not going to have to plug this into a stereo or always use high-end headphones in order to just sit down and enjoy this. If you've got the space and you don't have super picky neighbors, you can sit down, you can pump the volume on this and just have a boatload of fun. I just saw my cameraman Lee look at the audio levels because he's like, why did you turn the volume up? It's like, well, you know what? It's so much fun. That's why I turned the volume up. Driving all of this, or I should say controlling all of this, is something that Kawai brought out last year, and it's now the control interface on their CA48, their CA78, 98, as well as the Novus. In that, and I'll make sure that we get some B-roll of this, it's a brand new touchscreen control system onto the left. All of the buttons are gone. All of the control surfaces are gone. We're now left with essentially what's the size of an iPhone, and it's completely touchscreen. It's totally intuitive. It's fun to use, and there's a Bluetooth connection that kind of transports that control right on to a phone. And so I've got my phone, it's an iPhone 10, you can Bluetooth link it to the phone, and then with this app, you can totally just select right from there what patch you want to use. So within the app, we've got 10 acoustic pianos that you have to choose from, and then of course each one of these can be customized. So we start with the SK Concert Grand, which is sort of its big default juicy sound. Jazz Clean. Upright pianos. You know, and then even you get into the electric pianos. So on and so forth. It's a very easy app to use. It's free, so you can download it. Unfortunately, at this point, it's only on iOS, but the Bluetooth link between the instrument and your device, whether it's a iPad format or a smartphone format, that works in both Android and iOS, and there's hundreds of apps that you can use to make use of that wireless MIDI link, or that wireless Bluetooth as it's officially called. In addition to the touchscreen, there's a lot of standard features that people always ask me about. Does it have headphone jacks? Does it have audio outs? You know, is there a USB connection? So the answer is yes to all of those. those. This has discrete stereo audio out, so if you do want to hook it up to an amplifier or if you want to hook it up to a stereo at home, no problem, you can do that without it shutting off its local speakers, which is a nice feature. It also has headphone jacks, and what's great about that is it's got a 1/4 inch as well as a 3.5 mil, so you don't need the adapter. You can plug whichever end is on your headphones in, and it'll work just fine. In addition to that, you can also feed an auxiliary audio device in through a 3.5 mil jack underneath. It's got the input control or the gain control, so you can control the volume that's coming in. Plus, you can use these speakers as Bluetooth speakers. It seems like kind of a simple feature, but it's actually a ton of fun, because what this means is you can take your phone or you can take your computer or any Bluetooth device that you play your music through, and if you want to play along to some of your favorite tracks, you don't need the cable. You can just link it up, and you can use this fantastic set of amps and speakers right on board to play your favorite music, and you can be playing along with it. I have a lot of people that come back and tell me that that's one of the things that they actually use the most with their Bluetooth connection, and I can understand why. It's a ton of fun. You can engage with something that you already have a lot of fun with, which is, of course, your favorite music. Last but not least, it's got the cover. If you're in a dusty environment, or of course you just like the look of the instrument with it closed versus the keys up, when you're not playing it, you pull the cover down. Elegant look from a furniture standpoint, and you'll make sure that your keys stay nice and clean. The CA78 sits in a point in the market where there are probably 4 or 5 competitors that are sort of vying for your attention in this price range. Roland has some, Yamaha has some, and of course the closest one to the CA78 on the Kawai side is the CA98, which is virtually the same instrument with a soundboard. Of course, check our page, check the links below, because we'll make sure that we give you access to the CA98 review nice and handily. Anyway, so to wrap up, we've got an instrument here that Kawai has really put all of its maximum efforts in, and it's a culmination of, as I said, literally 20 years of research and continued development on the action, on the control interface, on the sound technology, and now they've combined the CA and the CS series from a cabinetry standpoint, and you can get this in polished ebony. I'm not sure what more you could possibly want from a digital piano if you were looking to just sit down, enjoy a super authentic piano tone, and just relax at the end of a day with your favorite song. So get to a showroom and try one out if you have the opportunity to do so. I highly recommend it. I don't think this is an instrument that is going to disappoint in any way, shape, or form. Or of course, if you're in Toronto, we have one of these in both of our showrooms in Oakville and Vaughan. We'd love to see you, and thank you so much again for watching another piano review from Merriam Pianos. My name is Stu Harrison. We'll see you next time.